episode of Careers in Coffee. How are you this morning, Liz?
Great. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good, doing good. Well, we are in November of 2022. Lots of interesting things happening in the world, and our last Careers in Coffee was actually about the economy
Yeah.
and what's happening around the world. You can check that out on our channel if you'd like to. But today we're going to go back to the basics a little bit, which we like to do here on Careers in Coffee, and give you some tips and just things to think about when you're building your resume. So
Yeah.
Liz, I know you attended a webinar recently, and could you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah. So I listened in on a Google Grow with Google webinar that was all about optimizing your resume with practical strategies. And they had so many great tips in there. I highly recommend this webinar, and we'll link to it in the show notes so you can watch it yourself. It's only about it's an hour long, but you don't have to watch the entire thing. It was definitely relevant to any job seeker. So whether you're applying for a professional position or another or warehouse position, anybody that you're going to have to put together a resume, this is a great tool for you. So one of the things that was new to me and of listening to this webinar was talking about what do I do when I have a gap in my employment? How do I explain that in a resume? This is a common question we get from job seekers. And previously, maybe we'd advise like, well, make the most of your volunteer experience and whatever skills that you've built. And that's still good advice. And that was some of the advice that they had in this webinar, but they proposed that I'm just going to open up my screen here of the notes from here. It's really important when you're optimizing your resume that you choose a professional format. So you make sure that the format of your resume is something that is going to look professional to a HR hiring manager, or even just a manager that was going to review your resume. So that professional format is a place to start. The second thing that you're going to want to do is highlight your skills and accomplishments. What's unique to you? What have you accomplished so far? And then citing specific examples and measurable details is really key, because and as quickly as possible too, because people are scanning these resumes, and you want to show, whether it's improved sales numbers by 25% in my time there, whatever it is. It's got to be something that is specific and measurable that you can claim in your resume with, that's accurate. And then you're going to tailor your resume to the job description. And we've talked about this before with keyword optimization. It's just a tip that you're going to want to have some of the exact verbiage that's in a job. What do you call that? A job posting.
Yep.
And,
job description.
In the job description of what they're looking for, make sure you use some of those keywords in your resume. That is the last step, though. The first step is that professional format. So bringing it back to, well, what do you do when you've got a gap in employment? They have a template in Google Docs. Anyone can use this. And so this functional resume template really puts your skills first. So if you're, let's say you haven't worked for 7 years because you've been taking care of kids or an older family member or something like that, something that's gotten in the way of your work. Something that is a different kind of work that's not outside of the home. You're going to make the most of what skills that you've gained through that time period. And so it could be, were you vice president of the debate society in college? Or that's an interesting example there, but it could be organizational skills, account management. Let's say you paid all the bills in your household or something like that. That's, organization that is something that's going to be important. Maybe it's a communication skill, that you're a good communicator or friendly. We've talked about those counting as skills. Those soft skills are super important to employers, especially in this day and age where it's really, they can teach you the things that you need to learn on the job, but the soft skills are kind of hard to teach. So any soft skills I think you should put in there. And you just put your first and last name, your contact info. That's the most important part of a resume in the first place. And then your any education that you've gotten. Maybe you didn't finish a degree. That's okay. You just put that you have some experience. Maybe you took a year at Kirkwood, or you had a year at Iowa or something like that. You just put that in there. And that you graduated high school if you have a high school diploma. And then any experience, you want to include your most current position first. If it's been if it's been quite a time since you've been there, just keeping it to the year and month that you started and stopped, what your title was, and then going back to that optimization, like what did you accomplish there? What specific measurable things did you accomplish there? But it's really starting with the skills first and then your experience, which is different from our traditional resume that shows your experience first and then your skills maybe on the side.
Yeah, I like this. I have a question. So let's say, it has been a while since I've been in the workforce, and I'm sitting down working on this functional resume template. I'm just drawing a blank as to exactly what my skills are. Like, I'm sorry, I just can't think of, like, what am I good at naturally? Like, what skills can I bring to the table? How would you suggest somebody go about finding out what am I most good at?
So we've talked about this before. I mean, you have like quizzes, right? Like that you could do an online quiz that kind of helps you identify those things. But you just need another person, and this is where, calling on your resources when you're job searching is really important. So it should be a friend or a family member that thinks highly of you. You don't want some naysayer to be part of this process. You want someone who's positive and that is forward thinking and, kind of has a nice view of you to be helping you with this process, because they're going to help you. You're always going to be harder on yourself than someone else. And so they're going to help you identify, like, you're amazing at this. Why don't you put that on there? And you would not have done that because you don't really notice that about yourself as being a skill, like being able to balance the books every month and making sure the bills are paid. That's a great skill. That's really important.
Yeah.
Or, managing, showing up on time to pick people up when they need to be picked up. That is a great skill, like being prompt, being accountable, things like that. So yeah, an outside person. Okay, if you don't have anyone in your life that is a positive force, I'm going to recommend that you try to use some of the resources we recommended in the past, whether it be the Kirkwood Career Center or the Opportunity Center at the library. Iowa Works as well as a resource to you. Typically, if you're going to go to Iowa Works, you may want to make an appointment with someone and say, hey, I need help with my resume, versus just walking in. Or if you do walk in, say, that's why I'm here. I need help with my resume, because that's going to clue them that you're going to need assistance with the process. That you're not just ready to fill out an application right there.
Sure. Yeah, I absolutely love what you said there. Makes a lot of sense. And I've kind of vetted friends for that same exact thing. Like, and sometimes, I mean, you sit down and you get to know somebody and you can usually tell pretty quick, like, wow, that person's really good at maybe connecting different people, right? Like, they know a lot of people, they are a really good connector, or you can tell this person is really good at, maybe problem solving or finding opportunities, or like you said, like managing the books and keeping things organized. So I think that's a great tip for somebody that's been out of the workforce and just like, wow, I really can't think of what I bring to the table. So talking with friends. Well, I have one other thing. I mean, I wanted to add here, and this would be more of like a way to differentiate yourself when you're applying to a job. And maybe you've been out of the workforce for a while. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you're looking for a way. But I recently just looked up like trends in applying to jobs or job searching in 2022, and the idea of a video resume came up in a search. And I know when I first asked you about this, you were like, oh, video resume? What the heck? So I first heard of a video resume probably 10 plus years ago. And at that point, it was nobody had ever really been doing it. But the basic premise of it is to create a short elevator pitch about yourself. So this could be including things like your skill set, like what you bring to the table, what your education is, what you've done in the past, why you'd be a good fit, and using those keywords that are found in the job description to, create a short video that you could, just keep private on your YouTube channel or whatever, and send off to a hiring manager. So this might be in addition to, okay, after you've already applied to a job through, an ATS system or online, but you have contact info for the hiring manager, you could follow up with and just say, hey, wanted to follow up on my resume I submitted. Also, I created a short video about myself and my work history. Let me know if you have any feedback for me, that type of thing. So I really think that's one way you could differentiate yourself. The video, I don't believe, has to be like professionally, like super snazzy or anything. I just think it's more about the effort level that you're willing to put in and differentiating yourself from everybody else that might just be applying online.
Are there certain positions you think that would be better suited to a tactic like that?
Gosh, that's a great question. I would think any type of position that you are dealing with people or marketing. So maybe it's communications, maybe it's marketing. I'm thinking more along the lines of if you are, say, a developer or an accountant, maybe it's not so important if you work alone a lot. Like I'm just thinking broadly off the top of my head here. But if you're working in a position where it's going to be important for you to be, communicating internally with people or externally, like in a sales role, one of those things that's going to be super important is your soft skills and how you present yourself. So I could see for any of those type of roles, this being a really good addition to your resume.
I mean, you might already be recording yourself on TikTok, right? So like,
Exactly.
That's another reminder. Treat your social like it's public, especially when you're job searching, because people will look you up. So we have a whole another blog post about that. But yeah, I would imagine that's going to become more and more common. I think the interesting thing will be is how does HR deal with that, like to introducing bias or things like that. I'm just curious about those things, because that was one thing that came up when kind of was like video interviews. It's like, how do you keep like an automated system from incorporating bias into the hiring process when there is a video component or something like that? But it can be part of a process. Like I'm sure if you're applying to Google, to work at Google, there would probably be a video resume part of the application process built into their system. I don't know. I've heard about those things happening at these larger corporations, but
yeah, I mean, you bring up a really good point there. What kind of cognitive bias would happen during if you're doing a video? But I guess I wouldn't be too concerned with that on the front end. It's really not your problem. Your problem is, I want to go find a new job, or I want to get back in the workforce. Right?
Well, you could probably attach it to your LinkedIn, right? Like, so it would just be like a video that would just enhance like your bio on your LinkedIn. I could totally see that being something that you'd want to share with a potential hiring manager.
Sure. I like that idea too. Cool.
Well, good stuff.
Yeah. Anything else to add?
I would just say that Google has an incredible free webinar series all about the job search process. We'll link to that in the show notes. We'll also link that to our career resources. But I highly recommend these. Their tips are very sound and I think applicable to any type of job search process. And they really just cover the basics that you need to know recently was sitting down with a family member who was applying for jobs and just inserting myself into the job application process with them, and just realizing how many steps there are to this process and why job seekers hate it so much, because it is really not fun to do this stuff. But once you get a professional base resume that you can kind of adjust over time to depending on what job it is that you're applying for, you're really in a much better state than without it. So I highly recommend it as part of your job search process.
Great. That sounds good. All right. Thanks, Liz. We'll see you next time on Careers and Coffee.
Bye-bye.